You're listening to AI Prism from Seoul Economic Daily.
If you hold Samsung SDI, you are standing in the most crowded exit and the most crowded entrance at the same time. Retail investors sold more than 2 trillion won of the stock in the first half. Short pause. The number of small shareholders rose 29.2%, and the KOSPI gave back a 2% morning gain to close down 1.55%. It's Wednesday, August 19th. Let's look at what this means for retail investors in Korea. Korean stocks opened sharply higher on returning foreign flows and a calmer won. They closed sharply lower because U.S. long-term yields and oil both moved against risk assets. Underneath that swing, ownership of one battery name changed hands on an unusual scale. Here's what the numbers show. The KOSPI closed 108.11 points lower at 6,869.83, after trading as high as 7,216.62, and the KOSDAQ dropped 3.52% to 834.20. The won closed at 1,411.80 per dollar, while foreign investors net bought for a fifth straight session. Matter of fact, Samsung SD. I counted 766,880 small shareholders at the end of the first half, up 173,195, or 29.2%, from 593,685 at the end of last year. Retail investors net sold 2.03 trillion won of Samsung SDI through the end of June, about $1.44 billion, the only stock above 2 trillion won in net retail selling. The share price ran from 269,500 won at the end of last year, about $191, to a peak of 722,000 won on April 29th, about $511, then closed at 488,000 won, about $346 and 32.4% below that high. Samsung Securities data show 48% of its Samsung SDI holders have owned the stock for 6 months or less. So what does this mean for retail investors holding through the swing? Earlier, we said the exit and the entrance were equally crowded. Here's what that actually means for you. The shareholder base has rotated toward investors who bought this year and are mostly underwater, which tends to make a stock more reactive to news. None of this is a recommendation, and the useful point is that your position now sits in a register that looks very different from 6 months ago. Watch the U.S. 30-year Treasury yield, which reached 5.31% and is now setting the tone for Korean risk appetite. Watch NVIDIA's earnings and the Jackson Hole meeting later this month. Watch Samsung SDI's North American energy storage orders after it converted its General Motors joint venture into a wholly owned plant. That's today's AI Prism, Retail Investors. This episode was produced with AI assistance based on Seoul Economic Daily reporting and reviewed by a human editor. AI Prism is a Juan Efra award-winning series. We'll be back tomorrow.
You've been listening to AI Prism from Seoul Economic Daily.